Hi, everybody. Welcome to Meet the Mailers. I'm Paul Bobnack for Who's Mailing What, and today I'm talking with Josh McCaully. He is Managing Director, Solutions Architecture for GrayHair Software. Now, before we get started, keep in mind that you can join our conversation by commenting in the box below. Show your support by tapping the like button, and to get notified of when we add new videos to the channel, click on subscribe. Now, let's meet today's guest. Welcome, Josh. Good to see you.
You as well.
Well, let's talk about your background, how you got involved with direct mail, and what your role involves at GrayHair. I understand that you've been with the company basically since the beginning.
Yeah, I was actually born into direct mail. My father used to run a few different letter shop locations or mail service providers, whatever you want to call them. And so I kind of started there. I worked in his plant when I was younger, like in college, and sort of understood how direct mail was produced. I worked in customer service for him in college as well. And then after college, I started to work at GrayHair Software, and I've held a lot of roles there. I was in IT, I was in client services, and then I was in our sales team, and now I'm in charge of all of our data and delivery of our data solutions to our clientele.
So you've done basically pretty much everything.
Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none type scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. So for our audience, what types of services does the company offer to marketers with your platform?
Yeah, I mean, we consider ourselves like a big data for mailers, right? So a big data platform for mailers, and what we focus on specifically is address quality solutions, as well as the tracking of the direct mail and how they performed in the mail stream, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to understand how many pieces got delivered, when they got delivered, if they weren't delivered, why weren't they delivered, which letter shops did the best execution from a delivery standpoint and compared to targets, optimization within their supplier network, that type of scenario. And then obviously cleaning up when it comes to address quality is, cleaning up source systems and making sure that they're as accurate as possible. So,
mm-hmm. Well, let's get more into what's GrayHair's bread and butter. Like you said, data. What are the advantages to enhancing or improving your data, starting with address quality?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if your message doesn't get to the recipient because the address is incorrect, right, from a marketing or even operational perspective, how good is your communication, right? You could have the best creative in the world, the best message in the world, the best offer in the world, but if it doesn't get there, it was worthless, right? Yeah. We notice a lot of mailers tend to minimally, run, the bare minimum, which is CAS and NCOA, and they run that on a quarterly basis, right? Because that was like a postal requirement. And so now, we look at addressing in a more holistic fashion, right? And so we're trying to promote better address quality habits. So you're running it more frequently on the database itself, and then you're also capturing address feedback mechanisms from the Postal Service, using ACS, and then using that data appropriately to ensure that you're updating the source systems with that, right? Not all the data is within CAS and NCOA, right? So there's other sources that you need to consider to ensure your undeliverable rate is as low as possible, right? So.
Right. Okay. Well, what ways can marketers use to inform visibility and also inform delivery to market across channels, as well as to improve their level of service?
So inform visibility, obviously, when you know when a mail piece is being delivered, you can coordinate multi-channel communications better, right? A lot of people say, hey, you can expect your mail piece in the mail today, if you have their email address, or you can, do that through some sort of other digital communication. And so being able to coordinate that will lead to higher response rates, right? Is what we've seen. It also works really well in servicing mail, right? Like we have a lot of customers that use that information to tell people like when they're about to get a credit card, right? And that gets them to want to use that credit card, right? Gets them excited about it. It also removes a lot of pressure from other systems, right? Where people might be calling in to understand where something is because you're giving them visibility to it, right? Which improves their overall reception of your service, right? And informed delivery is also useful in both channels, right? Whether it comes to marketing or servicing, because you're giving people another way to interact, right? Instead of having to rely on that mail piece, they may prefer to get the mail piece but want to interact with you digitally. So you're giving them that method to click on digitally, right? And the other good thing about informed delivery is that we see a lot of challenges with people not having a good email database, right? They've got a good database of names and addresses, but they don't have the correct emails for everyone, right? And because the Postal Service is curating that list and you're able to take advantage of it, you may be able to get an email to somebody that you weren't able to get to them before, right? So I think that's the benefit of that system. And the Postal Service has done a pretty good job of increasing the size of that database over time. And obviously in the infancy of the program, there was very few people in the informed delivery database, and now it has a pretty significant size of users. So
Yeah, sure does. Like about 47 million or something like
that.
Yeah,
I haven't looked at the latest numbers, but you can go on their website and they update that, right? The numbers pretty consistently. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's actually really interesting to dive into the Excel spreadsheets where they break it down by zip code, and you can really get a great granular view all across the country.
Yeah.
Well, what strategies and techniques can marketers look at that would improve their mailing rates as well as their costs?
Well, when you're looking at it from an informed visibility standpoint, right? If you're trying to understand, is your delivery strategy being executed properly? I think that's one of the most important things that people can do with the data that they're not necessarily doing, right? It's one thing just to say, like, is our message getting delivered when we want it, right? But from the other thing that people need to look at is, we have a lot of customers that when they market people, they may mail somebody 2 to 3 times in a given month. And when they do that, and if those communications are meant to hit people in a specific order because the messaging requires them to be hit in order, and if they hit out of order, that could be a detriment to your overall response, right? So I think using the data more granularly is going to lead to better overall adjustment of mail strategy, right? The other thing too is, you're also, by understanding what your delivery looks like, especially mailing out of specific suppliers, you may be able to change how you mail something, right? Most marketers now aren't using first-class mail anymore, but we still have some customers that use it from time to time, especially in like trigger mailings, right? Where they feel like they just got the freshest data and they still want to get communications as quickly as possible. If you're able to spread that out across suppliers geographically, you still may be able to use standard marketing mail class, right, and get similar delivery timelines. So.
One concern that some consumers have is about the security of communications, and mail is part of that. What kinds of measures can companies take to prevent fraud and to keep customers safe?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of the things that we focus on with our data specifically. The beyond having the correct address, which I'd say is probably the most important thing you can do, right? Obviously, if you're we have a lot of customers because of their compliance that will knowingly mail a mail piece to an incorrect address because they're not necessarily allowed to take the new address that may be offered by NCOA because of compliance reasons.
Oh, right.
And we're, and there's going to be a lot of times where that is forwarded to the new address anyway, right? But there could be times that it's not, and you're adding an extra step of handling in the system, right? So using the best address possible, or if you may not have a good address at all, maybe you don't mail it, right? Mail that communication until you can confirm you have a good address otherwise, right? The other thing that we look for is using informed visibility and ACS and secure destruction data. You're able to understand what is the actual, where is that piece going, right? And if you start seeing a piece doing something it's not supposed to be doing, right? Going outside of its normal path of travel, you might, if it's a credit card, you might cancel that credit card or act a higher level of activation to it. If it's a check, you may cancel the check, right? So those are just things that our customers have in place is to try and secure what was in that piece as it is. But again, I think ensuring you have the best address possible is the best thing you can do to avoid fraud. So,
yep, certainly makes sense. So overall, what is the best proposition from your point of view for direct mail? Why does it still work today?
I mean, it's a good question. And I'm surprised to see some of the metrics where they say some of the younger generations prefer to get direct mail compared to digital channels. I think people are just saturated, and they're looking for ways to get off their phones, right, or get off their digital communications, right, with how connected they are. Especially, there's a lot more people working from home these days than before, right, and they're always connected, they're always on, and I think looking from an escape from that is somewhat normal. And maybe the mail is a way for them to get off of their connected lives and to feel something more tactile, right, instead of just always digital. And I think the other thing too is that, especially in an acquisition standpoint, the data seems to be much more consistent. This individual living at this address, right? It's easier to mail them a message and understand, what is their credit score, right? What is their, what other things they like to shop for. I think that data is that, and the process to get that data has been around for so long that it's really consistent. Getting somebody's correct email address with that information may not be as consistent, right? And so you may not have the success rate of getting them the offer that you want to get them, right? So.
Yeah, it's that whole history and infrastructure that, sort of is behind direct mail for decades, and that level of trust that goes with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, wrapping up, what trends do you see unfolding in direct mail going into the rest of this year and 2020?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult question, right? Because I think the economy is going to play into it significantly, right? I mean, we saw, obviously, with the start of COVID, and we saw mail volumes decline pretty sharply, right? And people, were sort of very hedgy or cautious because they didn't know what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, mail volumes skyrocketed, right? Almost up to like pre-2007, 2008 in some cases, right? Pre that recession timeframe, which is when mail really started to decline in volume compared to what it was. We're seeing mail volumes start to taper off a little bit, but like a lot of our core customers are still, their volumes are what I would call aggressive, right? They're still really relying on the mail to get new customers. I think if the economy starts to struggle even more than it already is, compared to 6 months ago, we might start seeing some of the financial mailers taper off their volumes a little bit, not looking to bring on as much debt as they have been. And so we'll see, right? I mean, I still think a lot of the other channels are going to still rely on mail, right? The nonprofit space, the retail space, their volumes will sort of maintain, but it'll be interesting to see what the financial markets do based upon the economy. I do think beyond the economy, though, some of the new technologies, like a lot of Lob and Pebble Post and some of these other companies that have trying to create more technological applications using mail, we will see more adoption. And we also, a lot of the traditional large letter shops, right, the ones that have a significant amount of inserters and offset processes, are moving to more digital press, right? Digital technologies. And so it'll be interesting to see as mailers start to move towards those technologies as they become more cost effective. How does that change, the types of mail that we get in our mailbox? So.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree with all that. Well, I think that's a good place to wrap things up today. How can people find out more about GrayHair for a consultation to talk with you or for a possible partnership?
Yeah, I mean, you can always just contact our sales team. On our website, there's a contact section there. Probably the best way to start a conversation. We're pretty responsive in that channel. You can contact me, but I'm not in sales anymore. So I'm more on the data side, just making sure we're getting our data to the right people within our organizations. But our sales team will be able to respond to any inquiries.
Great. Well, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Yep.
And thank you all out there for joining us today. And remember that you can join our conversation by commenting below, asking questions, show your support by tapping the like button, and click on subscribe to be notified of new videos. If you're interested in being featured in a future Meet the Mailers, I want to hear from you. My contact info can be found in the paragraph below by tapping Show More. Thanks again for watching Meet the Mailers, and see you next time.